There's an echo in the canyon, a reflection on the sound.
Captain Mike, I love that song. There's an echo in the canyon. And here he is in the flesh, the composer, Captain Mike, who's such a good guest, volunteering today, switching from camera to producer.
As long as it's not electrified, I'm okay.
And I want to introduce you to Victor Banowitz. He is my alumnus buddy from Fairfield University, 64. Can you believe we're still upright and talking? Yes, we are. Can you hear me, Victor?
I can, thank you.
Thank you. We are set. I love your red shirt. You're finally getting better. Even
I'm
better.
getting attention, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
You're getting, oh yeah, that's much better. And thank you for wearing the red shirt. Although today we're dressed in honor of the two parties in Florence in 1300, the blacks and the whites, the Guelphs and the Ghibellines at each other's throats. Kevin is here on camera, and he boned up on the Divine Comedy, La Divina Commedia. So I'm going to open with a few lines from that, and you'll appreciate it. Of course, it goes back to Nel mezzo del cammino.
Del cammin de nostra vita.
Thank you. You've got
That's
it.
the only line I know.
Say it again.
Nel mezzo del cammin de nostra vita. It's in the middle of the road of our life.
Yep. So we're jumping ahead. Whoa, looking for wisdom today to enlighten our condition. You look like one of the wraiths, Victor, in the Gustave Doré artistic renditions in the Inferno. You're going to have to get brighter. Thank you. Otherwise, we'll mistake you for a ghost. That's better.
Okay, right. Okay.
Okay. So,
Getting better, I'm sort of half lit, but that's the way it's going to have to be.
yeah, well, I know what half lit has been. Mike does too. And maybe Kevin.
That's me on Friday night, half lit, yeah.
Okay.
Quote, Ciacco, I answered him, quote, your wretchedness so burdens me that tears start in my eyes, but if you can, tell what the future holds for citizens of our divided state. Tell me if any man be just, and why so great a discord has afflicted it. We need an answer to that. And we'll come back at the end of the show and see if there is any answer, hope, way forward. Yeah. So, Victor, number 5, professional ethics. You're on.
Well, professional ethics, yes. Since you're based in Connecticut, why don't you show a picture of the Connecticut Four, the librarians?
Oh, great. Thank you for doing that. First, we'll come up with number 5, Emily. Remember professional ethics. We're up to number 5 on this show, starting with 5, going through 11. So, Emily, if you can pull up number 5. There we go.
Should I get camera to just in now?
Well, that's the illustration from the book, okay.
Yeah. So can you read that for us?
Oh, when political leaders set a negative example, professional commitments to just practice become more important. It is hard to subvert a rule of law state without lawyers, or to hold show trials without judges. Authoritarians need obedient civil servants, and concentration camp directors seek businessmen interested in cheap labor. So, and that's where individuals, professionals, and so forth with ethics can resist. That's why I brought up the Connecticut Four. There's a picture of that too. This was the case of Doe versus Gonzalez. The librarians challenged a national security letter sent, yes, by the FBI under the USA Patriot Act. They wanted to know who had been using library information services over a certain period. The librarians refused. They also challenged the law that required that the FBI request had to be kept secret, and they won in the Supreme Court.
Wow. Yeah.
You don't mess with librarians.
Never.
They have other concerns besides keeping their places quiet.
What a beautiful example. That is so affirming, Victor. And all of us know the bedrock Carnegie building that was built in every town and hamlet of the United States at some point, right? Didn't he offer you?
Indeed.
Yes.
We have a Carnegie Library in our neighborhood that was then closed but then reopened as a nonprofit, the East Side Freedom Library, which is dedicated to history of labor and of immigration. And that's in the Carnegie building. I also, as it happened, I just watching an Irish movie, and apparently there are Carnegie libraries in the British Isles as well.
You got to be kidding. He had that much
I was
money?
hoping to see one in an Irish comedy. Oh, there's the Carnegie Library. Let's be fair.
Wow. You got it. And any other examples of ethical backbone where lawyers actually go against the grain of their bottom line philosophy and actually band together for the common good? And can you think of it?
I can think of an example of physicians.
Oh, good.
In Pakistan, the government decided to get popular by becoming more Islamic. So they wanted to introduce the charming old practice of amputating the hands of thieves. Naturally, they wanted to do it properly and have physicians in attendance while the thief's hand was being severed. The Pakistani physicians refused. They said it was contrary to their medical ethics and also, in their opinion, un-Islamic. And they won out.
Way to go. Thank you. That's a winner.
20th century example.
20th century. Yeah. Speaking of the 20th century, what do you think of the book on tyranny overall? Because we're making good progress with you helping along big time. And I'm hoping also for 11 through 16 with somebody else you might find for us to bring in another voice. But On Tyranny by Snyder is a surprise to me. First of all, my neighbor upstairs said, "Oh, is that Tim Snyder, the journalist?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, Tim Snyder. He's got a journalist background." What did you think of the book overall in its structure in terms of 20 lessons from the 20th century. Does it hold together? Is it a coherent and cogent argument for us? I mean, it was written in 2017 when Snyder said, wait a minute, we got this renegade in office. And what are we going to do about it? Well, here we are, folks. We're trying to do something about it, okay? And you have to raise your voice, too. And this show should prompt that.
I think it's a pretty creditable achievement. He has been a journalist, he's now an academic, and yet he's managed to write a short, pithy book on basically how to resist tyranny and preserve democracy. So I'm very glad it was called to my attention. I had no idea it existed. I have some comments and some reservations. By and large, what he says is valid. I wouldn't contradict anything he said. I would like to add a few things.
Oh, goody. So let's add a few things and flesh out the background of some of the history of this. So moving on to number 6, be wary of paramilitaries. Where did they come from anyway?
Well, there's been a lot of that.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have an answer? But one of the formative books in my life were the memoirs of a German communist, a German ex-communist. His father had been like a barge captain. And this kid grew up Anglophile, reading English adventure novels, and he published stories in English. His name was Jan Walton. And for a while, he was very concerned. He was born in 1904, and so he saw Germany at its most miserable after World War I. And he joined the Communist Party and became an activist for the Communist International. And then he found himself being very impressed by social crusaders who were faith-based, like activist priests. He had nothing but praise for them. And more disillusioned with, the whole project of the Communist Party began to be to advance and justify the ways of the Soviet Union. So I learned there that Germany in the 1920s, our Wild West had nothing on it.
Wow.
It was strapped by the penalties imposed after World War I, monstrous inflation, people on pensions committing suicide because the inflation had made their pensions worthless. And communists, Nazis, and social democrats all very much at odds with each other. You think of Europeans as so pacific and so appalled by American violence. A century ago, they showed they could be just as violent. You have the picture of Rosa Luxemburg?
Wow. Rosa.
She was interesting writer. She hooked up with the Communist Party before they became really doctrinaire and showed their true stripes. But she was therefore in Germany a rival of the Social Democrats. And the Social Democratic chancellor, acting semi-officially, had her kidnapped, shot, and thrown into the Landwehr Canal in 1919. And they even made up a song to celebrate the event. That's how rough things were. She was a very intelligent writer, very strong-willed and positive and effective person. Since she was a communist, the Social Democrats thought she was terrible, so they killed her. There was a lot of that. The author of the memoir I told you was also involved in lots of street fights, Molotov cocktails against armored cars, that kind of thing. It was terrible, especially in Hamburg, which is still a pretty left-wing city. Chapter 6. So that's what paramilitary does, and the end of the chapter, I think it's a very short chapter. And he points out that these violent elements and agents of the government are small in number and they really depend on the cooperation of the police forces. For violence to transform not just the atmosphere, but also the system, the emotions of rallies, and the ideology of exclusion have to be incorporated into the training of armed guards. These first challenge the police and military, then penetrate the police and military, and finally transform the police and military. And of course, Snyder saw that sort of beginning to happen during the presidential administration that concerns him, which I will not further identify.
Well, I will.
So,
I'll add
Oh.
that that's what scared the whatever out of me when, oh no, former President Trump comes up and says, you know, get this rabble out of the park facing the White House. What? Bring in the National Guard, bring in the Army, merge them together. That's exactly what Germany is doing in those years of takeover. So that was pretty scary for me. And it was a bellwether moment. I was really, really disappointed in, is it Milley, the Joint Chiefs guy who tagged along when Trump said, come with me? Was it Milley?
I think so, but
It was
we'll
just
have to ask
awful.
our viewers to do their own research.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Boy, you knocked number 6 out of the park. So as summary, I'll just say, as the page says, and thanks for the great review of the book overall. You really got it. And a few bones to pick. Okay, I'm interested in that for sure. But when the men with guns, oh, the whole country's awash with guns now here, who have always claimed to be against the system, start wearing uniforms and marching with torches. We had that at the University of Virginia. Check that off. It's already been done. And pictures of a leader, the end is nigh. Oh boy, when the pro-leader paramilitary and the official police and the military intermingle, the end has come. We're trying to avoid that. How do we do it? Well, we move on to number 7. Oh boy, that's a very unfortunate picture there. That reminds me of Dante. You know, the ghost, the shade that rises out of the grave. And Emily, I think I gave you some wonderful black and white version of the Doré. So, you know, maybe you could intersperse some of the Inferno's artwork, Gustave Doré, with the next 3. That would be great. I look forward to that. So, Victor, what have you got for 7?
Just a reflection. In the end, you know, the Soviet regime was notorious for sending in the tanks whenever there was any rebellion, any sign of rebellion. But when it was collapsing, tanks were approaching Moscow, and Boris Yeltsin stood unarmed and faced them down, and all the soldiers driving the tank stopped and said, you know, we're with you.
That was a moment. We loved it.
That was a moment, yeah.
Oh, and then
So that's just to add a little sunshine to that gloomy chapter.
yeah, but the sunshine was on this one flower that had been planted in a inch dirt of soil in terms of democratic traditions and fertility in the Russian culture. to allow democracy to flower. 1 inch of soil, as Henry James said, doesn't make a novelist. You know, you gotta have depth. You gotta have history
Right.
and culture. And you gotta have hundreds and hundreds of years of it. So that's why he went to Europe. But whoa, Yeltsin, if he didn't have an alcoholic problem and if he didn't have his funny dancing, and if he didn't pluck Putin out of the morass and mess and really the East German tradition and put him up just to save his own skin and his family, then it might have been different, but that was a moment, a shining moment. It wasn't a city on a hill, that's for sure. And that sunflower only had 1 inch deep of soil to grow in. Too bad.
I did a little background on the Great Terror under Stalin. That was around 36 through 38. He decided to purge his critics and any other elements he considered suspect. And I guess it ended up in something like 1 million dead. And then he decided he'd gone too far. He relented and showed his contrition by having the people who had enforced his bloody policies executed, passing the blame on to them. I guess they were a redemptive sacrifice for himself. But the atmosphere by that time, there was a strong atmosphere, a policy of surveillance and a really intimidated people. And that continued to be the tone of things in the Soviet Union, I think even after his death.
I think right. And I think what stopped him from a complete paranoid frenzy and bloodbath of the whole country was World War II. Although, I don't know, mental illness may swing in a pendulum back and forth, but he was crazy like a fox, and Putin is just the inheritor of the tradition. Stalin was the real thing, wasn't he, Victor? But
Yeah, well, he was definitely crazy. Yeah, he was quite willing to shed the blood of others. I mentioned something like 1 million, 1.5 million in the Great Purge, but the land reform, by his own counts, took more lives in World War II.
yep, and
Killing off all the kulaks.
the Ukrainians, of course, have felt that in the 30s when they were starving to death, and the kulaks were under. But put it all together and what you got. You got, paramilitary and soldiers roaming at will, and at the will of the demagogue, the dictator. So be reflective if you must be armed. So of the 400 million guns in the United States, do you think anybody among all those owners are reflective now? Are reflecting on what's going to happen if Trump and his minions don't accept the outcome of a losing election and everybody is in the streets? I mean, is that what Dante's talking about in his Tell Me Your Future? Tell me from a poet's point of view and a philosopher's point of view, what's in the cards for your country? And of course, what was in the cards for Russia was 20 million dead? You got to be kidding. That was the totality, I think, after World War II.
Right. But by Stalin's own count, the land reform was 30 million. Just people who wanted to keep their own land.
Yep. And number 8. I won't bring in the dream I had last night based on these Gustave Doré wonderful artworks, because it was a little crazy dream. But we're going to take a break for about 3 minutes, and we'll gather our thoughts. And audience, stay with us, because the worst is yet to come.
Smart TVs and streaming services have taken over the television industry. VSC TV is proud to announce our presence on Apple TV and Roku to make watching your favorite shows even easier. You can access this service by downloading the Cablecast ScreenWeave app. Then choose Valley Shore Community TV from the list of channels. Select VSC TV Live to watch our channel in full HD. Or pick a show from our on-demand video library. VSC TV is your local Connecticut Mid-Shore Valley digital connection.
Vacation rental cons top the list of travel scams reported to Better Business Bureau. Con artists often pretend to own these rentals and try to talk you into paying them directly instead of through a travel company. It may be tempting because scammers will offer a cheaper deal, but the last thing you want to do after taking time off of work and paying for airfare is to get to your destination and learn the home you plan to rent doesn't even exist. Do extra research before buying into an ad you see on social media or online. The free cruise is also a common con. Read the fine print and watch out for add-on fees, taxes, and other charges. And finally, beware of third-party booking sites that claim to sell airfare. You pay with a credit card and then receive a call from the company asking you to verify personal information such as your bank account. In other cases, you're told your flight was canceled and convinced to fork over more money to rebook. To see the full list of vacation scams and how to avoid them, visit bbb.org/travel, and to report a scam, visit bbb.org/scam-tracker.
Here at UConn, we are an academic medical center. We are involved in cutting-edge research to find the best possible treatments for women.
Benefits of women's health care at UConn is that we have very robust and diverse care for women during all phases of life.
That includes everyone, irrespective of their economic status, of their health status. We are very inclusive. We believe in taking care of each person as a person. There's nothing like kindness in taking care of patients.
Come on in, come on in.
Welcome to Sure Things.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mazzetti Show.
Hello and welcome to Arts and Entertainment.
Come on in, come on in. Welcome back. It's wonderful. Thanks, Anne Marie. Good to see you again. Kevin's doing a bang-up job. Oh, yeah. More wrinkles, Kevin. Wow. Victor! I'm having a blast. Are you having fun? I hope you're having fun yet, because you're our dramaturg. You do research that nobody else I would trust to do. And I'm telling you, it's as comprehensive as, it's golden nuggets. So what golden nuggets for number 8 stand out? Well, that's the title, Stand Out. Yeah, we're all golden nuggets standing out, right, for democracy? Someone has to. It says.
Busy with a Get Out the Vote campaign.
Yeah, and are you doing some of that?
There's a group, a letter writing campaign called Vote Forward.
Uh-huh.
You should be able to find it on the web. Vote Forward. It finds areas where people are less likely to vote, and encourages them to get out and vote their interests while being nonpartisan.
I have a high school friend right now that's filling those out and sending them out.
Oh, Captain Mike, say
Yeah.
that again.
I have a high school friend that's presently filling out those little mailers and sending them out individually.
Wonderful. And what high
I
school
think she
year
did a
was
couple
that?
hundred yesterday. We graduated in 1971.
1971.
Yep.
Boy, that's a generation for hope. Yeah, so Victor, could you read number 8 for us and start us off?
You gotta put it on the screen or do I have to? Oh, here we go. Stand out, someone has to. It is easy to follow along. It can feel strange to do or say something different, but without that unease, there is no freedom. Remember Rosa Parks. The moment you set an example, the spell of the status quo is broken and others will follow. Yes, I like just sitting in a class and you ask the question everyone else is afraid to ask because they think they might sound dumb. I'm thinking, I know I don't know the answer, I may as well admit it and learn. So even in a fairly low risk atmosphere like that, it pays off. If you want to know the answer, probably a lot of people also do. If you have reservations that no one else dares express, you can probably get agreement just by speaking out. And I think Rosa Parks was a great example.
And yourself, have you been an example? Is there a way in your UU community group where you find that you raise your voice for some of the issues or changes that you desire?
Well, I'm pretty much in agreement with all the social action they do, so I haven't made myself a dissenter there. Other things, though, one example is one thing I challenge. There are certain unchallenged dogmas in conversation. One is if someone says something critical about, oh, I don't like organized religion. Oh, really? You could always say, oh, so disorganized religion is better? Or unorganized religion? Or do you mean people who are religious should only be privately spiritual and not gathered together in congregations the way they have for millennia? Tell me how you feel about organized religion. I want to hear more. They get mad at me sometimes. But I want to get back to Rosa Parks.
Good.
She was a courageous individual, but she did not act alone, and she was not the first person to be arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus. There was another woman, a younger one, who had done the same thing. She was brave too. And when Rosa did it, the NAACP decided to make an issue out of it because Rosa had a better image. There was nothing we would consider wrong with this young woman except that she was an unwed mother. And back those many decades ago, that was an embarrassment. So they're being a little conventional and bourgeois by not making an issue of that. When Rosa decided she wasn't going to give it her seat, she was secretary of the local branch of the NAACP. She was working with Martin Luther King. And they decided when she would make trouble on that bus, and she did. And that's when that triggered the Montgomery bus boycott. And so, of course, she was courageous. She was willing to get arrested. But she also worked with an organization. So the moral is, you might bring it off if you want to be the Lone Ranger, but maybe you should just organize your fellow townspeople into a posse first.
Wow, well said.
That's the end of my sermon.
Aha. I like Captain Mike's reference to his high school friend who's now in that campaign. That gives me hope because, you know, graduating high school in 71, it's like, oh, well, you know, let the younger generation worry about it. But how about being kind to our language?
Yeah. One way to use language carefully, shall we read this?
Yeah.
Avoid pronouncing the phrases everyone else does. Think up your own way of speaking, even if only to convey that thing you think everyone is saying. Make an effort to separate yourself from the internet. I would find that hard. Read books. Well, I do. Yeah. And especially test abstract terms against concrete reality. And what I'm leading up to is that Donald Hall poem, The Body Politic.
Oh, goody. Yeah. So you want it up on the screen?
Yes, please.
Yeah. The Donald Hall poem.
You wrote that in 1955, I was surprised to learn. I came across it in the 1960s. Here we go, look at that, all on one screen, great.
Great.
I shot my friend to save my country's life, and when the happy bullet struck him dead, I was saluted by the drum and fife corps of a high school while the traitor bled. I never thought until I pulled the trigger, but that I did the difficult and the good. I thought republics stood for something bigger, for the mind of man as Plato said they stood. So, when I heard the duty they assigned, shooting my friend seemed only sanity. To keep disorder from the state of mind was mental rectitude, it seemed to me. The audience dispersed. I felt depressed. I went to where my orders issued from, but the right number on the street was just a vacant lot. Oh boy, had I been dumb. I tried to find a true address, but where? Nobody told me what I had to know. And secretaries sent me here and there to other secretaries, just for show. Poor Fred. His presence will be greatly missed by children and by cronies by the score. The state, I learned too late, does not exist. Man lives by love and not by metaphor. Yeah, questioning abstractions, abstract ideals.
Well, there is a book that jumped off the shelf. Country Ideals. And it's an issue that I just cracked open just to see what was in here. Of course, ideals are what the Republic are based on, right? They're not realities, can never be realities fully. They're just, as the cover says, the Declaration of Independence. So, how do we break the barrier, the divide between the ideal and the real or the practical? You know, the get out the vote. How do we bridge that and bring the idea, the burning ideas that were in the bellies of the framers as they were fired up by the possibility that, war sometimes engenders in terms of patriotism. But as the poem says, what are we doing here? Why are we shooting our brother? And of course, you can extend that to the world. Mary Oliver's got a wonderful prose poem about that, jump over the falls because that's where you should be, into love, transformative love. That's a long rambling, but what are some more practical steps we can do as we approach November?
We got some ideas.
Besides reading books and educating ourselves, maybe this show is a way, practically, to extend some of the ideals that we talk about into the everyday life of people who, fall asleep at 8:30 if this show isn't exciting enough. My neighbors particularly. So moving on, it's Believe in Truth, number 10. Speaking of ideals.
Yeah, I like the point that fascism, authoritarianism, always shouts myths and slogans in total disregard of facts. I remember arguing with people during the Vietnam War period, and people would back you and say, I'm supporting the president. That's not necessarily your job as a citizen, I don't think. I think you have to know what the policies are, see how they're working, and if they're not, then if you disagree, you should disagree openly and loudly. A lot of war protesters thought that they weren't having any effect. It turned out they were actually harassing the government to come to an end of that war because it was making the government so unpopular. The humane ideas of ending a pointless and destructive enterprise and killing and traumatizing our troops and destroying the lives of many more Vietnamese was not as much a motive as actually the threat of getting thrown out of office for pursuing an unpopular war.
Speaking of war,
yes, the protests were effective.
Speaking of war, I liked your anarchist friend's paper on fighting Russia to the last Ukrainian, particularly the last two paragraphs. Is it okay with him if we show that?
Oh, he's happy to have it circulated any way possible.
Oh, that's wonderful news. Emily, could we put up, and I think Victor sent you a copy. I hope so.
Gutnecht.
Sorry?
He has an unpronounceable name like mine, Gutnecht.
Budnik, yeah.
That's the name of the file, yeah. Here it is, oh yeah.
Can you read it for us?
Yes, a big lie is the repeated descriptions of NATO as a defensive alliance, despite the wars of aggression in Serbia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Ukraine, and beyond. NATO is a prime cash cow for the military-industrial, and Ukraine is a giant money laundering operation for it and its government friends. Not sure I agree with all of that, but he has a point. Our war machine is the world's most expensive, but it is less effective in achieving strategic political goals. The blob works to 1, designate an enemy country opposing our interests, 2, maintain fear of the designated enemy through propaganda and shameful ethnic hatred while lying about U.S. provocations. 3, successfully increase the military budget and support smaller regional powers, Europe and elsewhere, with alliances, debt, and dependence. Ukraine is the latest such U.S. disaster. These ongoing campaigns typically destroy much of the enemy's society, yet we are serially frustrated diplomatically and militarily. Then we depart and encourage historical amnesia. In Korea, Vietnam, Serbia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria, where despite funding ISIS, we were defeated after Syria invited help from Russia. We're told the U.S. promotes democracy and the rule of law, yet we contradict that by proclaiming our exceptionalism and the right to impose illegal sanctions on other nations and to intervene militarily without local approval or the UN. See also Palestine, etc. The U.S. is failing the neoliberal dream. Its practiced values are not liberal, rather are reflected in more censorship, little diplomacy, and more war. The fundamental issue in Cuba in 1962 and now over 60 years later is mutual respect for other nations' sovereignty and security. Imagine Russian or Chinese missiles and military exercises with Mexico near our border. The question is how and when Western rulers will be shocked into conceding that their deadly world dominance dreams are done. He makes a few good points. I think he's right, there was some provocation for Putin's invasion. I'm not sure that provocation means justification. In fact, I'm rather unsure about that. But generally, outside our borders, you may talk about American benevolence after World War II. People are asked, what is the greatest threat to world peace today? They often respond, the foreign policy of the United States. And Dave is calling attention to that. He resisted the draft during the Vietnam War. And he spent some time in jail, but he got a good pro bono lawyer and he got released. So he has been known to act on principle.
Thank you for reading that. It's really bedrock in terms of the money that's gone to the defense industrial complex, which is ever more greedy and ever more spending. But I think we'll end on 10. We'll give 11 off to next time. But I'll read that just in case we want to talk about some lies that are propagating on the airwaves. 10, believe in truth. To abandon facts is to abandon freedom. If nothing is true, then no one can criticize power because there is no basis upon which to do so. If nothing is true, then all is spectacle. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights. Captain Mike and I were having a conversation before the show about 2025 and what we fear. But, you know, we can take it back to 2017. And Emily, if you can put up this filler, which was at the end of, I'll read it. You got it. Thank you so much. Bingo. In 2017, the American president, we all know who that was, President Trump in 2017 averaged 6 lies a day. The next year it was 16. The following year, 22. In 2020, he told on average about 27 lies a day. This figure is so high that it makes the correct assertion seem like unintended oversights on the path toward total fiction. Wow. And on and on and on. You multiply that now since 2017, and what do you got? I don't know. Somebody on the internet has been counting, and it is definitely Whoa, in the thousands of lies. So, where do we go from here? Well, unless things change, we're hell-bent on hell, Dante's version. Could we put up some of Dante's Inferno for those who are guilty of?
The picture's good.
Anne-Marie, can you get Emily to put up Dante?
There he is.
Oh, in the middle of a dark wood. Nel mezzo del cammin. Wow. Oh, remember these, Victor, from the old days? The Gustave Doré art? Yeah.
Yeah. My parents had an old Bible full of illustrations by Doré. I'm telling you, they will give you funny dreams.
That's what I had last night.
As you said, yeah?
Oh my gosh. And I've been going through them because the book is so special. The next one, and what do we got here? Oh, the lion blocking its way. And the next one, oh yeah. Whoa. And that's something. And the next one, I'm looking for, oh yeah, rising from the grave. Who we got here? We got Dante and Virgil. And oh, Victor, you're tuned into this. Who could that be? Who do we have?
Coming out of the tomb?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't read the Inferno.
Aha, okay. Not in a long time, I'm saying, but you've read it before.
It's so long, I may as well not have. So you have to be the authority there.
Me too. And the next one, if we have any. So, Dante is good. If we don't reform, improve our ways, what do we got here? What gives you hope, Victor, right now, at this moment, in politics for the United States?
Well, everything that happened after Biden withdrew. And I live not far from Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
There was a Harris Walls rally there. Someone who lived in Eau Claire said that the traffic was backed up 3 miles, people trying to get into the rally.
Wow. Size matters. Size matters.
I had a lot of hope the night of the debate between Biden and Trump. Not because of Biden's performance, though it was better than Trump, but expectations were higher. But then MSNBC got Kamala Harris on. I thought, wow, she's a dynamite speaker. I had no idea. And then Gavin Newsom, governor of California, came on and said, oh, he's another dynamite speaker. Holy mackerel, we got some real firecrackers here. Of course, after the debate, anyone would have sounded good as a speaker.
Yep.
But I know they're really good. And since then, it seems the Harris Walls campaign is not only following all the rules and doing things right, I think it's showing how it's done. So that gives me hope and the enthusiasm. I think the fact that the current administration is slowing down inflation, that's going to make a lot of difference in how people vote. So
Thank you,
that gives me
Victor.
hope.
Thank you very much. We're going to end with maybe 2 stanzas. Thank you, Captain Mike. It's a poem from this Ideals book.
It's entitled My Neighbor by Joy Bell Burgess. All my neighbor did was wave from his field across the way.
He waved.
But his warm and kindly gesture was the highlight of my day. In that golden moment, there was a blending of our hearts, a mood of rapturous joy that only friendship can impart. Not a single word was spoken, but in the silent sharing of a smile, I felt the bond of love between us grow stronger all the while. And somehow my steps were brisk and lighter as I went about my chores. And at night my heart was singing still when I latched my cabin door. All my neighbor did was wave from his field across the way, but his warm and kindly gesture was the highlight of my day.
Thank you, Mike. Don't you feel it? Such a small gesture. Thank you for joining us. We will return in a few weeks.
Nice meeting.
Thank you, buddy. High five.
Love you all.
I'm gone tomorrow, and you hear this song today. Just remember there is love for you in every note I play. There's an echo in the canyon, a reflection on the sound